50, 52, 54. It was probably 49 metres. He was on the other side of the halfway before he took that one or two paces is all he needed to absolutely strike it sweetly.
Well, he could have kicked it from 60 out. It was sailing over, and it was a special play. Not many players in our competition in that moment can step up and execute such a massive play. And Latrell is one of those guys. And I know we probably focused on the field goal, and then even the try that he scored late, just to sort of rub a little bit more salt into the wounds of those Broncos fans. But the two defensive plays, they were massive as well. He made a tackle on Payne Haas in open air in that first half, which could have changed the game. And then late in the game, he made another try saver on Mariner, who was destined to go to the corner, and tried to take Latrell on the outside. But Latrell was good enough to pull him in the touch. And it was a special sequence of plays, all those moments that he came up with for his team. And he's playing, I wouldn't say he's playing as good as I've ever seen him play. We've known him to have these moments throughout his career. That's the type of player he is. But if I'm a South Sydney fan and a supporter, I'm looking at Latrell, the way he carries himself, how focused he seems and how mentally strong he seems at the moment. It's giving me a lot of hope because, I was critical of him last year a lot when they weren't at their best, and the emotion that was coming out of him. And he's an emotional player. He plays on the edge, and that's why he comes up with the things that he does. But I felt a lot of the time last year, the frustration was coming out of him, and he was lashing out, and he got suspended a few times, or within the game there was ill discipline and penalties, and he was putting his team under pressure. But this year, he just looks dialed in and focused, and all that emotion is heading towards his teammates and in the right direction. Even after he kicked that field goal, like he was happy, but he was still focused. He walked back. He knew there was still time on the clock.
He almost turned his back on it.
He was dialed in. There was still time in that game to play. At the end of the game, he scores that try. Sure, he's happy in that moment, which he's allowed to be. He should be happy. They just sealed the game. But then straight away, shakes hands into the sheds because it's on again next week. And it's as good as I've seen him look on the field in terms of his mentality. Like, I know he was fantastic at the Roosters, but he was young then, and he didn't have to shoulder the burden of being a leader and the responsibility of putting the team on his shoulders when he needed to. And that's what he has at South Sydney. Like, if they're to go deep and continue to get results and to play well, it's going to be off the back of him. And I think at times, certainly over the last couple of years with how the club's been going, he's got that wrong in his energy and where his focus is. But this year, he's been unbelievable, and it's a good sign for him. It's a good sign for South, and hopefully it's a good sign for New South Wales.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Wade. The thing is now, like you said, he goes into the sheds and it's on again next week. And I think that's the thing for Latrell at the moment. Like, we all know in here that and everyone knows he's an outstanding rugby league player, but it's stringing those games together now. He's had a blinder last night. He's won the game for them. Now do it again next week. Be involved again next week. Keep that. I'm going to say, well, it was a bit of an attitude last year. What you're trying to explain there, Wade, where he was concerned about what the crowd was saying, concerned about what the other team was doing. That's got to stay out of his brain again next week, and he's got to concentrate on winning those games, being in those big plays, being involved in those games again for South next week and the week after that.
Well, that's what gives me confidence, Hindy, that he is so switched on and focused. He's seeing his reaction to a result like that, because we all know, and there's like a joke around rugby league within players' circles, like you got to ride the roller coaster, right? There's many times you go up and with victories like South had last night, and then if you don't aim up the next week, just as quickly it turns around and you're back on the other side of it. But the way to sort of navigate that is, you try never to go too high and you never go too low. Like, we're never going as good as we think we are, and we're never going as bad as we think we are as well. We're always 1 week away from getting out there and trying to get a result. But you need to manage that mental side of the game. And he just looks crystal clear with his mentality. He looks calm out there on the field. He looks focused. And I don't know whether it is some stuff in his off field that he's cleaned up, or he's a lot more at peace with it, whether it's the Wayne Bennett influence on him. But he looks as dialed in and as focused as I've ever seen him, and that is good. That's where he needs to be for that club. And again, if I'm a South Sydney fan or a member there and I'm looking for a big positive, not just with the result, but in terms of moving forward with him as a player and as a leader in my team, like he's looking fantastic.
If you consider what he went through at the start of the year, injury, suspension, in the past that's probably been an excuse for him to let things slip, fitness-wise, attitude-wise, but it hasn't derailed his season. He's come back, as you said, focused. And I remember last year when I sat down with him, he spoke about Wayne Bennett, and he rang Wayne when he got appointed and he told him, I need you. And Wayne's response was, yeah, you do. And you can see that concentration. And you can have your thoughts on Latrell this year. I don't know if you haven't noticed, but if you've noticed, he hasn't done any media. He's made a decision that he won't do any media. He doesn't want the outside noise. And whether that's right or wrong, that's a debate for another day. But what it is doing for him is keeping that mind clear. It's keeping his focus clear. Like yesterday, he went off the ground pretty quickly, right? We know that. Part of it is, yep, we've got a game next week. But also, he didn't want to be around the cameras. He didn't want to be asked to do interviews or rejecting people. He knows he's got a job to do, and that's next week to back it up. And I think he doesn't want to be part of that sideshow anymore. And some things he just can't ignore. You can't ignore. No.
Well, none of us wanted to be part of that sideshow.
I know.
But we all have a job
Well,
to do.
And that's an argument for another day, right?
Yeah, but that's to promote the game as well. And people want to hear people like Latrell.
Yep.
Kids at home watching footy want to hear people like Latrell.
Yep.
So I'm a 50-50 on that. Like, I get it. If that's his mindset and that's what he wants to go down and that's what's going to make him a better rugby league player, I get that. But you've got to get to that point as well where you're happy with the way you're playing, but you've got to feed the fans a little bit as well.
I think just on that, like for a short-term strategy, I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's brilliant because what he needs right now and what he's doing out there on the field is exactly right. Just dial in your football and let your football do the talking. You don't need to go and do all the other bits and pieces. In terms of a long-term strategy, once he gets through the other side of it and you go, okay, well, I can separate me as a footballer and my focus as a footballer. And then there's another part, promoting the game, getting out there, talking about what I need to talk, but they're completely separate things. I think in the past maybe they've blurred into each other, and the frustrations of the pressure of having to, because like there's a lot of good players in our game. There's like you go to Nathan Cleary, who arguably is the best player in the game. He's won 4 premierships in a row. He hasn't got a bigger profile as Latrell Mitchell. Like Latrell Mitchell is the biggest profile we have in our game, and that comes with a whole different level of pressure and scrutiny. So for a short-term strategy in terms of happy to brush all the other commitments to focus on my footy and do what my team needs me and what my club needs me to do, which is his number one job, 100%. That for me is making sense. But long-term wise,
he needs to find the balance.
It needs to find the balance because his voice is powerful. People want to hear from him. And I think he will get there, particularly with Wayne Bennett there as well, overseeing him. But it's just, for right now, this is the right fit for him, I think.
And he's not shutting everything. Like we saw a nice video the other day. I think it was to a sick patient in hospital. Latrell's given her a FaceTime or something like that. So he's not, shutting everything down. He's still doing what he does outside of rugby league with his, helping the Indigenous community and all that sort of stuff. So
just doesn't want to deal with people like us.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, which
can you blame him?
Good photograph on the back of the telly. It was in the Herald as well, though. The moment after, when he's engulfed by his teammates, and he just had that look on his face, which is, it's just what I do, no biggie. Doesn't
that suck a little bit though? Like for people like us who just want to, wouldn't it be great to just go out there and dying moments of a game?
Surely you kicked a field goal.
Have you? No way. No.
You never kicked a field goal?
Did you kick a field goal?
I kicked a couple field goals.
Did you? From how far out?
To win a game?
Yeah.
Really? I know my brother did. Left-footed. Don't know how.
Well, not from 48 out. No way. No.
Did every sinew in your body come together in a perfect hole?
Stop it.
My leg would have fallen off if I tried to kick one from 48. Well, I did play in the halves, Heine, so I had an advantage over you.
Brandy called it the best he's seen in the NRL ever. In commentary.
I reckon the Benji one, you remember that? I think it was at Campbelltown years ago. He hit one from 50 out.
That was against us.
Was that against you?
That was in round one.
Yeah, that was incredible. That
the
Benji
Nathan
one.
Cleary one stands out where he just got off the tap, I think, to win the game. That's a good one. Obviously, the Cooper Cronk one.
Yeah.
But in terms
2015 State of Origin.
in terms of
Sean Timmins.
Yeah,
Tim
Sean
Jones.
Timmins. Yeah, that's
Yes,
actually
that was a good one.
That's
That was
a good
great.
one.
Good one.
That was a good one. Braithen Astor likes his as well.
No, I didn't like that.
Didn't like that.
Oh, against the Tigers, the Roosters Tigers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was
That
good.
was
There's a
impressive.
couple of good ones from memory from over in the Super League. Pat Richards kicked one, I think, in their version of Magic Round or whatever it was from. I think it was maybe 55 or 60.
On the sideline
Yeah,
too. wasn't it?
he was incredible. And I remember Jacob Miller kicked one from halfway over there as well. Jacob Miller, for all die-hard footy fans, he played at the Tigers for a little bit and went over early into the Super League. He kicked a really good one from halfway. So
Can I say that is the first time I've heard the name Jacob Miller mentioned on this program in the 13 years I've been doing it.
really,
Yeah,
oh well, there you go. There's another one.
I love that.
Can I also
Always
say
just
that
breaking down barriers.
the two-point field goal's been great. Like the innovation. I know that in the end they probably would have won with a 1-point field goal, but it's just changed the dynamic of games at the end. It's been a good innovation.
Graham, Michael Thomas, Nathan Highmarsh, Tony Squires with you. South Sydney 22 over the Broncos 14. Those numbers don't really give you a true indication of what happened. It was in the last with less than 2 minutes to go that Latrell Mitchell stood up and knocked that field goal over from 49 metres out. It was a 2-point field goal, but then he scored the try. And that try was very interesting, Hein. And what did you make of it? Because the clock had counted all the way down. Latrell, as dummy half, took the knee, which is usually the universal sign of, don't hit me, it's all over.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
It's an unwritten rule. Like, you go down like that, and you could see the Broncos players. They went, game's over.
Game's
It's done. Unsportsmanlike from me. Unsportsmanlike. Other people
Not
will
in
say,
the spirit of the game.
Not in the spirit of the game. Other people will say, crafty move.
Yeah.
Cheeky move. But now he's got a cross on his back now, I reckon. If he goes down again, injured or not, or whatever,
Bang.
slow play, he's gonna get it.
Oh, what do you mean he's going to get? What are other teams going to prepare him more to go out there and tackle him
100%.
harder? Like, come on.
It's on their tip
He's on
sheet
their
now.
He's on their tip sheet anyway.
Bang. Well, this is another one.
But if he goes on one knee, they'll just tackle him anyway, is what you're saying.
As I said, I would you have done it, Wado?
Maybe.
No, he
maybe.
wouldn't have. You do a survey of the NRL players out there now. It's not against the rules.
No.
I understand that, but it's not in the spirit of the game.
Do you remember the Joey Manu one?
Yeah.
The Joey Manu. I think they played at Gosford, the Roosters, one day, maybe against the Dragons, Tone. And he went down, and it was like he had a cramp or something in his calf. And then everyone just sort of stopped, and then he just took off and made a break, set up a try. That's worse.
It happens.
That's
But
worse.
He's, as I said, some people will call it really crafty. I didn't like it. I didn't like it.
JT, very close to the line, indicated that he was kicking the ball out after a penalty and didn't
tap
tap
it.
it and ran and
Yeah.
scored
But
the try.
that would happen all the time, I think. Like some players, they point to the touchline to the ref and goes, I'm going to take a tap, just to gain that split second advantage over your opposition. But
Even when he was being poor, he was absolutely so watchable, Latrell Mitchell. Like the throw in from as he was going over the sideline, which could so easily have led to a try for the Broncos. That ball into his own in goal. Fortunately, his teammate got it.
yeah, and that's a high risk play, but we know that's what Latrell comes up with. Like he lives on the edge. And we've been giving South Sydney a rap, and obviously the plays that Latrell came up with, you could tell as the longer the game went, the more confident South Sydney got, and the energy grew within them. But it's hard to ignore the fact that the Broncos, they got to that 14-0 lead and they had opportunities.
Yep.
And it's another game that they let slip. And they're so hard to get a read on because we watched them a couple of weeks ago just absolutely annihilate the Bulldogs, who at that stage had not had a try scored on them in over two games, I think. And you go, okay, the Broncos, that power game, when they get it right, like who can stop them? Who can stop them when they get it right? And then they come up against Penrith in Magic Round and don't really fire a shot, which is, disappointing in itself. I have no doubt that Madge would have been hard on them during the week, and that would have been unacceptable about how they performed in Magic Round. And then they come down here against South Sydney, who were awful in Magic Round. Wayne Bennett makes some changes as he does, and he pulls off another miracle in getting a team together. But the Broncos get to a 14-0 lead with the experience and the strike they have. Like, you think they should be putting that to bed, and I can't imagine it's a happy camp now, flying home back to Brisbane.
Oh, definitely not. But 14-0 is not. We know it's not, and I think they knew as well that it wasn't going to be enough. That's why, we're talking about it now. But for me, there's only so much, and there's only so much the forwards can do. and then it turns into the playmakers. You know, the playmakers are the ones that are going to control that game, get to their kicks, know when to settle the game down, know when to speed the game up. I'm leaning on Reynolds and Hunt here. I know Hunt went off injured with about 15 to go, but I thought Reynolds was, for his standards so far this year, I think he was a little bit quiet, and he was the one that needed to stand up and really take control of that game and get things done. Cobbo at fullback, quiet first half, but they're up 14 blot. And then the second half he comes out and tries to rectify a few things and has a great couple of runs, a few errors. But for me, it comes down to Reynolds and Hunt in that game.
Yeah, and now that you brought that up, it comes to mind a couple of opportunities yesterday in the second half. It's almost like they get impatient and panic when they're not finding the points that they feel like they deserve. They came up with a couple of early kicks that were ricocheted and just turned over the ball cheaply to South Sydney. And they did the same thing last week against Penrith. Penrith maybe defended three or four times on their goal line. And it was almost like they were out of answers, attacking answers. And it was like, okay, we'll go back to our little kick and try and roll the dice and get a result that way. And you know what it's like, Hindy, as a defender. If you defend your goal line and all of a sudden the opposition turns over a cheap possession to you, you grow in confidence.
Yeah,
you go,
100%.
okay, like
Yep.
we just solved that problem. We were good enough to hold them out. We're on top here. And, so much experience in terms of Hunt and Reynolds, it's a little bit of a concern that they don't have the patience or the willingness to just earn their points. They're looking for a quick sugar hit in a cheap kick try.
I found it fascinating after the game. Did you guys hear Jonathan Thurston's comments after the game on Channel 9 where he was really critical of, he basically said they were giving up and there was no hard edge, it was a reality check, and spoke about what Michael Maguire was brought to the club to bring that hard edge to the team. And to be honest with you, I think you made the point that are they any better than they were last year under Kevy? And the inconsistency, I think over the last 4 or 5 weeks or throughout the season, really, it's not what you expected from. We all thought Michael Maguire would go up there and this team would be whipped into shape and they would come out like they did in round 1 against the Roosters and be a premiership force. You see patches of it through the game, but there are concerns. And for someone like JT, someone of his stature, to raise those concerns over a football team which is oozing with talent, really. Like that's a star-studded football team that should be producing better football than they have. It makes you wonder, the people at Brisbane and some of the decisions made, is this where they thought they'd be a third of the way through the season? Because they're not firing.
Well, not the way they started the season, by giving it to the Roosters by 50 or whatever it was. But I think the Madge has got them definitely fitter. I think they look a lot better. They look a little bit more hardened under Madge. But there was instances in that game where they could have turned breaks into points. But that's an attitude thing. That you can't coach that. That's for the player themselves to be in that position when they're supposed to be in that position. Katoni Staggs makes a break with 5 minutes to go. There was 4 or 5 or 6 South defenders chasing back. Katoni was there by himself. Another one where I think Reynolds puts up a skew-if kick that lands in between a few players, goes in the in goal. Bentley Harpe picks it up. No one, I think there was one chaser from the Broncos. Yeah. Could have been a turning point, could have got another set of 6, worked for a field goal, but no one was there from the Broncos. They're the sorts of things that Madge has got to sit down and look at and go, why weren't you chasing? Why weren't you chasing? How come you didn't chase? Those things.
Yeah, well, they're at the same point as they were. I think they're same wins and losses they were last year at this time. And heading into an Origin series, they're probably going to be, we can talk about Ben Hunt a bit later, but Ben Hunt injury, the whole debate now around Ezra Mam, which we'll get to, does he come straight back in?
Well, that's the question. I mean, that decision's almost been taken out of Madge's hands, hasn't it, with Ben Hunt being injured? So you'd think that Ezra Mam will come. He plays tomorrow,
for South Logan. So, if he gets through that game, I imagine he's straight into the team. It's a tricky point of the season for them to navigate. You thought they would be better positioned than they are. And we know how Origin affects that football team. There are so many players who will feature in Origin in that Broncos team. So, yeah, I think it's an underwhelming start to the year. Apart from that Roosters game and that first half against the Dogs where they just blew them off the park. They were exceptional. And probably periods like that or performances like that make you question when you don't get that. Why is there such a discrepancy between their best and worst?
You guys were there last weekend when Ezra Mam's, when his image came up on the big screen and try and listen to it on TV about the booing. Was it loud? Was it obvious?
Yeah, it was. But also you have to remember it's not only one away team. There's 16 or 15 away teams there. And was it like there would have been maybe 5,000 Broncos fans in there. So they're always going to be over. They're always going to be overshadowed. But to be honest, it's a reflection of what he did and the severity of what he did in that incident. I don't think the NRL handled it well at all. That 9-game ban was nothing.
That's what I was just about to say in terms of if he comes straight back into the team, which I think he will, and that's because of the injuries. Like they don't have the luxury to let him come through New South Wales Cup and just try and extend extra punishment because they want him to earn it back that way. I think he needs to come back into the team. But even though it was a pro-Sydney crowd, there's no doubt in my mind that he still has a long way to go to redeem himself in the eyes of rugby league fans. And no one's perfect and everyone makes a mistake and everyone deserves a second chance. But we can't hide away from the fact that it was a big mistake and he was like there was someone, a child, seriously hurt. And it was lucky something worse didn't even happen. So I think everyone's of that general consensus that the punishment was light, and he's actually lucky if he comes back in.
That's true, but it's not Madge's job. Is it Madge's job to make moral decisions?
No.
Decisions?
That's why I think he comes straight back in.
Yeah.
But
I'm not buying that whole stuff last week around him being left out, cultural reasons, standards. No, if Ben Hunt was injured the week before. If Ben Hunt was unavailable last week, you think Ezra Mam doesn't play last night?
I agree as well on that. But I'm talking in terms of the general feeling from NRL fans. In the case where they booed him last week, like no matter what, he comes back in, even if he starts playing well, in terms of redeeming himself and paying back the game and repaying the game, I think he's still got a long way to go for fans in that sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's going to get booed for the rest of the year.
All right.